G'day everybody, Grizz here. To all you new subscribers, welcome to the channel. I've noticed a very large influx of Fallout fans ever since I put up the 4 original videos I did. So welcome to you guys, and I appreciate you being here. And just as a sort of a thank you to you guys, I've tracked down 3 additional hours of footage from a mate of mine who was in a different session. Now, fair warning, I've not seen this footage. It's going to be put up completely uncut. I don't know where he's gone, I don't know what he's seen, but we did have a post-match beer and he did mention some really cool stuff that he did find that I just didn't, because obviously, if you've seen the videos I've done, I just took it upon myself to just run, just do the map, just book it from one end to the other, which, a lot of people responded to. They liked it. That said, there are a few people in the comments who are like, oh, we want to know your opinion on the game, buy a mic, talk about the experience. Technically, I did do that for the original videos, but I just ran out of time. I had to get this thing rendered and compressed and uploaded, and Australian internet is just terrible. So I absolutely had a script of what I was going to say. I'm going to include that in here because I got a little bit more time this time. That said, it's going to be a little bit out of context because it was made for a different video, essentially. But it will give you my thoughts of, where we went for the event, what I thought of the Greenbrier, a little bit of history on it. Then it will roll into my thoughts on the PvE. Then it will roll into the cheesy griefing tactics I did in PvP. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, it doesn't go for very long, like 20 minutes tops. And then after that, you're just going to get raw gameplay without me talking. Which, to be honest, is how I prefer to watch videos, but I get it. Different strokes, different folks, people want to hear stuff. Anyway, in the description, I'm going to put links to my original vids. So if you haven't seen those yet and you wonder what all the fuss is about, go check those out. Or don't, it's all good. I'm also going to put timestamps down in the description, so if you are interested in a certain topic and you want to hear me talk about it, you can just jump straight there. Anyway, I will leave you with the pre-recorded script, and yeah, thanks for stopping by. Much appreciated. A decade's worth of being sent to game studios and events has dropped me into some pretty strange places. The weirdest journeys, without a doubt, have to be the real-world locales that are digitally recreated in the game that I'm supposed to be playing on site. Mix that faux deja vu with a day or so of jet lag, add in the aftermath of a few high-altitude beers, and things can get pretty surreal pretty quick. For example, last year I was asked to get sideways in a Mercedes across a Swedish ice lake in Project Cars 2. And that was both behind a Logitech wheel and in an actual SLK Roadster by myself. That one was as odd as it was ill-advised. More recently, I was asked to poke around the stately grounds of a hotel in West Virginia, both in the real world and in the alt history of Fallout 76, an MMORPG set in 2102. As far as I'm concerned, my friends, this is the current title holder for the most delightfully bizarre disconnects I've ever experienced while playing a game. Why was I in West Virginia? Basically to attend a world's first hands-on with Fallout 76. In this sizable video, I'm going to talk to you about the experience of actually being in a major location in the game. Plus, I'm going to give you my thoughts on about 3 hours worth of PvE, PvP, and there was a moment when I just broke off from the group and tried to get my sorry, low-level 6 arse across the entirety of the map. I'm also going to put in a table of contents in the description of this vid, so you can just zip forward to the topics that concern you most. I should also mention that my hellacious 48 hours worth of flights and accommodation were covered by Bethesda, but I'm not here to do cash for comment. If it's shit, I'm going to tell you it's shit, and they'll never send me again, and I won't care. It's that simple. Anyway, without further ado, here are my unfiltered thoughts on Fallout 76. The Greenbrier Hotel turned my blood to ice water the second our tour bus arrived there. Looking at it, you'd be forgiven for thinking the White House had a baby with the hotel from The Shining, and the result of that unholy union had gestated well beyond term. Colossal, decadent, haunted as hell. That's my 5-word, 5-star review for you. I won't waste time recommending you visit it, because it's expensive as hell, and you're going to be skulking through it in Fallout 76 come November 14. I don't think there's anything like this establishment in the United States anymore. A nationally historic landmark that's been host to Civil War generals, A-list celebrities, and a slew of sitting presidents since it opened in 1778. And, as an Aussie side note, It boggled my mind to know that I was staying in a place that started operating a full decade before my country was even colonised. Today, this 11,000 acre luxury retreat calls itself America's Resort, but for a secret stretch of 30 years from 1962 onwards, it was known to a very select, very powerful few as something else, America's last resort. Back when atom bombs could only be delivered by very slow planes, and you had half a chance to survive, the US Congress decided the Greenbrier would be the perfect place to duck and cover for the end of the world. Naturally, Washington DC would become a glowing crater in the opening move of any thermonuclear war. But by that time, the legislative branch, their families, and some hand-picked staff would have already relocated 5 hours west to a fallout shelter constructed under a veil of absolute secrecy beneath the west wing of the Greenbrier Hotel. When those officials arrived, crapping their collective pants, I imagine, they would be entering a fully stocked facility, and their soiled pants, jewelry, and other non-essential items would be seized and incinerated before entry would be granted. The bunker could keep 1,000 of them comfortable, in caviar, and allow them to command the remnants of mankind for at least 60 more days. After that, the mole rats would tunnel in and eat them all, presumably. Come Judgment Day, everything would be ready to go. A large chunk of the hotel staff were actually undercover government agents, ready to drop their serving trays and scoop up an M16 or a shotgun at a moment's notice. Conceptually, this Plan B, known as Operation Greek Island, was some truly Vault-Tec level shit that you and I might only accept as fiction in, like, the opening moments of a Fallout game. Touring this bunker in reality, while the current news headlines were talking to me of the US and China jousting with warships in the South China Sea, made things a little bit too real. I'd basically picked out a bunk at that stage. What's the Greenbrier's significance in this game? Well, for starters, it's literally smack bang in the middle of 76's reimagined for gameplay map of West Virginia. You're going to spend ages here, possibly snooping through its enemy-free, robot-patrolled innards, or maybe just running for your life out in its expansive gardens as high-level enemies try to check you out of this hotel permanently. Surprisingly, it's not your initial spawn point in the game. You're thinking of Vault 76, which is a good 15-minute hike to the northwest. I am, however, told that this hotel and its bunker feature heavily in the main thread of the narrative. It's a place that holds nuke codes, earnable strikes that can decimate huge areas of the map, and the resulting radiation can create super flora and fauna, and that equals sweet XP and rare loot. I myself saw one of Oppenheimer's babies detonate in-game, right outside Vault 76. It legit made me collapse back into my chair and involuntarily shake my head at the folly of man. Why would the survivors of a thermonuclear disaster decide to do it all over again, you might ask? Because war. War never changes. Sequels do change, however, and as I deep dived further into this radically different take on the franchise, Fallout 76 opened up in strange new ways. Part of my experience was good, clean fun. Other parts were toxic enough to make my game critic Geiger counter start to crackle. Let me be brutally honest with you here. I'm a 21-year fan of this franchise, from the isometric interplay times to the 3D Bethesda days, but when Fallout 76 was first revealed, my skepticism stat rose. It certainly wasn't because I don't like a good massively multiplayer online game. I'm known to MMO until the point of marital jeopardy. It's just that whenever I zip into a jumpsuit and open a Vault-Tec door, it's with the intention of leaving this toxic real world behind for an irradiated better one on screen. Basically, I like my dystopian escapisms devoid of life. Offline and chock full of freaks driven by AI? Yes. Always online and brimming with actual idiots? No. As you can imagine, I was not sold on the concept of 76, an odd offshoot which began life internally at Bethesda as a PvP expansion for 2015's Fallout 4. We never saw that come to fruition back then because Bethesda realised very early on that a complete rethink and rewrite of key systems would need to occur. Cue the hiring of MMO veteran Chris Mayer, whose work includes Ultima Online and Star Wars Galaxies. Throw in a bit of Quake 3 online code, and now we have this standalone thing that is Fallout 76. Despite Mayer's pedigree, I was still immune to 76's charms at first. But, due to the strange radioactive power that this franchise holds over me, mere minutes of exposure was all it took for me to warm to this game, and in an hour I was positively bubbling to it. Despite my initial reservations, 76 is now pretty much under my skin, for better or worse. And the worse of this experience definitely rears its head the second you exit Vault 76 into West Virginia proper. In the contained, short view distances of the tutorial bunker, everything is fine. You'll zip about, catch up with your 3 team members and grab some starter gear. And it's the usual stuff. Stim packs, rad medicine, plus food and water. Sustenance is a big deal in 76, as this game is basically like playing hardcore mode in Fallout New Vegas. There's also some unusual stuff to take in and scoop up. You'll get acquainted with a photo mode, and you'll be issued a camp. More on that in a second, but the short explanation is that it's like a kit home crossed with a bottomless Mary Poppins handbag. It doesn't make any sense, but it's still amazing. Anyway, once you get outside, you'll be struck by 2 things. One, as far as Fallout settings go, Appalachia is insanely lush and vibrant, especially when compared to the rusty city corpses we've been picking through since Fallout 3 to 4. And 2, the creation engine can have a tough time handling the sizable increase in geometry and draw distance. I'll let the video do most of the talking on this front. Essentially, hiccups just crop up all the time. One could cut Bethesda some slack here, as we're technically pre-beta, or the more cynical among you could remember this developer's usual MO. The studio has a knack for releasing its games a little ropey, and then a series of patches will invariably create a post-launch masterpiece you'll happily play for triple-digit hours. Many rough edges aside, the systems at play and the fundamental gameplay loop here is solid and familiar. I was pretty much doing what I always do in a Fallout title, only this time with 3 mates to back me up. Unlike The Elder Scrolls Online, an MMO spin-off that was a culture shock to many Skyrim fans, Fallout 76 feels immediately consistent with the scavenging and shooting of this franchise. Containers, loot, and incidental items litter an overworld that bears the eerie atmosphere of Fallout 4, but is 4 times the size of it. Familiar muties and short-circuiting robots explode into bits when you pummel or perforate them with your old tried-and-true combat tactics. Mind you, this time the VATS targeting system occurs in real time. It's great for locking onto enemies obscured by vegetation and can target limbs, once you earn the right to do so. But I don't know, it still feels a touch jittery and a bit of a win button in PvP. I'm not completely sold on its current design. I had another major concern going in too. A lack of quest-giving NPCs with lengthy dialogue and decision trees. It's true that 76 has pared all that right back, but I weirdly found myself not missing it when I was in the heat of the moment. Mostly because you're a post-apocalypse pioneer. That's the setting, and it explains away the absence of fellow human survivors out in the field. That said, you don't really feel alone because there were unfortunates trying to scratch out an existence between the times when the bombs fell and when your vault opens. You always get the sense that you've just missed out on a huge faction fight, and these were all resolved by lethal radiation sickness. Basically, you should expect 76 to be lore-rich in other ways, be it via text logs or well-voiced audio tapes that complement the main quests. 76 is also brimming with those little incidental visual stories that Fallout fans like me love to piece together on their own time. You know the type. Weird little objects pointing to sordid events that have long since played out. For example, I stumbled across a dog kennel with a periodic chart and some test tubes pulled inside. Plus there was an equation that would have stumped Goodwill Hunting chalked on the floor. My current theory? Fido must have mutated into Professor Pooch, but I guess we'll find out. In another instance, a mate of mine wandered into a small village where very localized earthquakes began to shake his screen apart, and disembodied shrieks filled the air. It scared the absolute crap out of him, and so he hightailed it out of there before he could get any concrete answers. When we mentioned this later on to one of the devs, his face just lit up with excitement. "Do you want me to tell you the twist?" he asked us, and we declined. It's mentally bookmarked for a beta revisit. I can't wait to find out what the hell's going on there. Mysterious moments like these make me think that 76 is pretty viable as a solo experience. Mind you, my own story through West Virginia was greatly enhanced by simply having the right crew of people around me. Cool discoveries and burdens were shared, and this in turn allowed us all to build sweet, defensible, and easily removable cubby houses with our camps. Also, Separating from one another and fast travelling back again was a cinch and with minimal load times. I honestly think it's going to be the best way to divide and conquer this world. Are there going to be idiots around trying to make your post-apocalyptic life extra hell? You bet your ass. I personally found evil to exist both inside and outside of my group. I'll cover the implications of this in the next section, but for now, all you really need to know is that the game is no PUBG or Fortnite. The killing of an unwilling player, known as murder, is tough to achieve because your damage on an unengaged player is scaled really, really low. You can absolutely chip them down to death if you put your mind and time to it, but there's little incentive to do so. Murdering pricks just become server-wide whipping boys, who will invariably end up losing a crapload of their own wealth for the price of being a dick. So that's nice. Man, one thing I will say though, when it did come time to kill one another, the energy from the 25 or so attendees in my session electrified the room. Though I had headphones on and could only really communicate with my pod of like 3 comrades, many was the time when I could hear a rival group shrieking with delight as their own jagged alliances broke down into savagery and infighting. And honestly, that's probably the best compliment you could give to Bethesda right now. It's just a lot of fun. In a fair fight in Fallout 76, popular Aussie streamer I Am Fall From Grace should have killed me about 50 times over. Incidentally, that's the rough number of chicken dinners she's won, solo, in PUBG. I probably should have expected stiff resistance from another local YouTuber, Ziggy D TV, and the rest of his crew, who are Bethesda folk with hundreds of alpha testing hours under their belt. Unfortunately for them, whenever I go into a multiplayer test, I'm always trying to think outside the box, to find the jerk angle, to cheese. Because I figure that's just going to be the type of malevolent, min-maxing player who's going to set the meta of a PvP when the game goes public. If there's a way to scum into a better situation, the average gamer will Google search it down and take it on. In the first few hours of my playtime, as I was learning the ropes, I kind of developed a theory on how to tilt the table in my favour. And you know what? It worked like a charm. But in order for you to understand that ruse, I'm going to need to bring you up to speed on how 76 gets its murder done. I talked about this a little bit earlier, but I'll say it again. The good news is that if you do not wish to be shanked or assassinated in Fallout 76, or to wreak the same havoc upon another player, Bethesda is very much in your corner. You'll need to hit level 5 before the option to kill or be killed is even enabled. Any level lower than that, and you're just an invulnerable noob, and when you do reach level 5, you can even go into your settings and turn on Pacifist. This means that any round you fire into a player, either intentionally or accidentally because they're trying to deliberately eat your bullets and start a fight, will result in no damage and no duel. It's also important to note that there's no friendly fire allowed if you buddy up with a group. Murder, on the other hand, is you relentlessly chipping away at another player who expresses no interest in engaging you back. Anybody who does take a steaming dump on the 6th commandment will find every other player suddenly becomes invisible on their map, while they themselves become lit up like a Christmas tree with a big red bounty sign. The money for that bounty comes out of the murderer's own wallet, and if you're a serial killer who has no bottle caps to pay back to society, a series of stacking debuffs will be your reward for being an antisocial sociopath. Oh, and if there's just some random in your group who turns out to be a murderer, you can all just shaft him and take the bounty yourself. When things do get hairy and your squad is dropping like flies, you can revive them by spending a stim pack. Anybody in a down state is rooted to the spot and can only emote yelp for help or push a button to end it all a little bit quicker, but they're going to lose some junk in the process. Not keen on spending your precious first aid supplies? Find one of the perks that will let you scoop up your fallen fam with a bit of food or a beer. Feeding your friends alcohol to get them up off the ground. It's like a bizarro version of Saturday night. So, now that we know all that about PvP, here's how my team and I gamed the system and a rival squad of 4. Our scout set up just out of range of our prey, and we all fast travelled to him. And that cost 0 caps to do so. And it's the same deal with a trip back to Vault 76, or to your camp, wherever you've positioned it. Now, while my wolf pack was all level 5s and they were able to do damage, I deliberately kept myself a few bits of XP below it. It would be my job to be an invincible annoyance designed to run interference and literally get in people's faces. As the battle was joined in Tyler County Dirt Track, it became clear that my plan had merit. Precious ammo and attention was squandered on me while my buddies just downed our foes. using a combination of VATS and some good old-fashioned iron sighting and axe work. Then, adding insult to injury, I gleefully emote vomited on anybody who was downed, right as the Team XP and cap rewards came my way. I also earned my keep as an untouchable medic who could get our team mobile again, even in heavy fire situations. I sure did miss killing people, but hey, we won that encounter, hands down. Is PvP fun in normal, non-cheater circumstances? A post-match chat with one of my buddies came back very positive. Weirdly, he did however lament a lack of shooter mechanics found in other games. Cover systems, evasive rolls, etc. But yeah, I think that'd be kind of weird to have that in a Fallout game. For the most part, I just think the gunplay stands up well as is. Providing Bethesda takes another look at VATS, which is kind of a win button when compared to measured aiming, then I think everything else is in place for a really amusing and intense multiplayer experience. So those are my basic impressions of Fallout 76. I think it's got a lot of potential. I was going to do a further section talking about my experiences going from one end of the map to the other, but I just realised that the video speaks for itself pretty well. In it, you'll be able to see how the engine is coping with all the new stuff in it. You're going to see a bunch of crazy crap, and some ridiculously high-level enemies just trying to kill me. It's like level 65s versus me. I'm 6. That should be plastered on the screen right now, including like 3 videos. They're all part of a 4-part series that are it's just pure gameplay. You know, none of me talking. You've had enough of that, let's be honest. Anyway, it should be on screen right now, so if you want to go check that out, definitely do it. And as always, thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it.
Welcome back, dear listeners. It's time once again to put aside all you think you know, all you believe to be true. Time to open your mind to the strange, bizarre, and sometimes terrifying world that exists in the shadows and fringes of our own, where myth, legend, and rumor are made real. Yes, it's time for more thrilling tales from the West Virginia hills. Not all creatures are of the land. Some stalk the skies. One such boogeyman has been reported for generations by mystified West Virginians. Its name remains the same, but accounts and speculation about its nature vary wildly. Some say man, others say beast, some say devil, others say angel. Tonight's tale, The Mothman Comet, begins in Morgantown Municipal Hospital. We join young Mary Scarberry's bedside as she wakes, looking a little worse for wear.
Nurse? Nurse Handy? Are you there?
Right here, my Sherry. And how are you feeling? Perhaps another impact will help. Is she awake?
There she is.
I heard her voice.
How's my brave little girl?
Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. I'm doing okay.
Oh, we've been worried sick. Oh, you gave us such a fright.
Howdy, folks. Awful sorry to disturb you at this hour. Mary, this is Sheriff Johnson. He just wanted to ask a few questions. Well, from what I hear, you're downright lucky to be alive, Miss Mary. You kids went through quite an ordeal.
Steve and Buddy, are they okay?
Let's just have a little chat first, Mary. Now, do you remember how you came to be on the Fayetteville Railroad Bridge yesterday?
Well, going to the bridge was really Buddy's idea.
Come on, Mary. Don't whip out. Every kid's got to do it sometime.
But, Buddy, you know I'm plumb scared of heights. How far you reckon that drop is, Steve?
My daddy says 1,000 feet. I heard it's 2,000 feet. Plenty of time to say last words and final prayers before you hit the river.
Stop teasing me. I told y'all I'm nervous enough already.
Come on. Quit your stalling. Here, watch me. There's nothing to it.
Buddy, be careful.
Last one across is round edge. Here goes. Atta girl. Come on.
Slow down. Gotta take my time.
You're doing swell, Mary.
Oh, no. I don't think I can go any further.
You can't chicken out now. Just put one foot in front of the other. Hey, y'all. Look. Up in the sky. Dang. What is that? Wait. I know what it is. See how its eyes are glowing red? It's the Mothman.
With a terrible winged creature coming for them, what will happen to these adventurous kids trapped in such a precarious position? Tune in next time for the thrilling conclusion of The Mothman Comet.
Remember, Moo? Wait, no. You just left a pile nearby. Not a good stuff pile. Never mind. How are your guts around my neck? Gimme!
Overseer's log, town of Flatwoods. My God. There's no one here. The old tavern, the church, people were using them for shelter, but they're gone. Mutations we expected. But there's something else. A disease. I was attacked by... Well, it used to be a person. But it had these green, glowing lesions, and its voice. Angry, tortured. We are one. One what? Whatever happened here is beyond anything we expected. And we expected a lot. Before they were wiped out, the survivors called themselves the Responders. Looks like they were made of firefighters, police, emergency medical staff. They even have an automated system to teach people about treating water, food, survival. I'm doing their tests, and you should too. I know it's even worse than we imagined, but someone's got to know where the missile silos are, and how...
Back, dear listeners. It's time once again to put aside all you think you know, all you believe to be true. Time to open your mind to the strange, bizarre, and sometimes terrifying world that exists in the shadows and fringes of our own, where myth, legend, and rumor are made real. Yes, it's time for more thrilling tales from the West Virginia hills. Tonight's episode, Who Goes There? The Strange Encounter in Flatwoods, is brought to you by Sugar Bombs, the breakfast cereal with explosive great taste and 100% of the recommended daily allowance of sugar. Get your morning started right with Sugar Bombs. Our tale begins on a fateful night when a young pioneer scout, Fred Fisher, finds himself in quite the predicament, having taken a spill and fallen into a dark place.
Where am I? Jack? Viv? Mr. Bailey? Can anybody hear me?
I can hear you.
Who's there? I can't see you.
Me. My name's Sally. What's yours?
Fred.
Are you okay, Fred?
I think so. My head's a little woozy. Must have hit it when I fell.
Oh, no. Did you get lost, too?
Well, sort of. What I mean is that I was camping with my scout troop by the lake near Flatwoods. There were these lights kind of dancing in the sky.
Neat.
I guess. Anyway, we heard some weird noises and the guy's double dog dared me to go look. So I did.
All by yourself? You're really brave.
Shucks. Thanks. I followed the noises to an entrance of an old mine. It smelled awful there, like rotten eggs, but worse. Suddenly, there was this bright light shining down on me. I was super scared and ran to the mine to hide, but everything felt strange. Like, my feet weren't even touching the ground. It went black and I woke up here in the dark.
That all happened to me too. We'll just do it like Dad says. When you've strayed or lost your foot, do what's best and stay put. They said they'd bring him soon.
There are other people here?
A very good question indeed. Tune in next time to find out the answer in the chilling conclusion of Who Goes There? The Strange Encounter in Flatwoods.
Our stories for posterity, you know. Seems like a fine idea. So, hi, I am Kesha McDermott. When the bombs fell, I was in Watoga, coordinating a statewide science fair for that year's high school kids. And the theme was the future of energy. After the bombs, everything was pretty chaotic. Scavenging for food and fighting off rabid survivors. Oh, it was just a bad time all around. I found a couple of surviving kids from the high school who... After a bit, I was able to solder the circuitry in the old radio, and
is
we
necessary
tuned into
for
a broadcast
equipment
from the
sterilization.
responders. Oh,
Please
we were
assist.
overjoyed. The trip from Watoga to Flatwoods, it was rough, mind you. The kids and I ran into a group of assholes in the mountains who stole our food and water. I can't tell you how happy I was to find the
With smarts and a little luck, you'll do just fine out there.
They had a problem, though. Their water sources were contaminated heavily. People were boiling water, but not long enough to make it safe. So, I stepped up and I said, I'll build a testing kit to monitor the contamination, and I will teach folks how to properly boil water. And I did.
control. Evacuate civilians. And take down those supervisors. Once they're dealt with, you'll have to reboot the server. Again.
Scanners indicate you are made of 90% compostable material. fertilization requires additional biological material. Stand still. Your biological material is required.
Attention citizens. Nuclear strike imminent. Please exit the area at your earliest convenience. Thank you for your cooperation.